Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. Today, we have Lila Turner with us, and Leela is the founder of Relationship Ready, a sister business of One Thought, with the sole purpose of addressing the invisible hurdles that frustrated singles face. She also works alongside Aaron, her husband, at running One Thought, which designs, develops, and provides programs to individuals and organizations. Her clients vary from leaders, engineers, filmmakers, teenagers, teachers, and entrepreneurs. And I will have the full bio for Leela loaded underneath the YouTube video if you want to learn more, as well as links to the website of Relationship Ready and One Thought. So Leela, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a while and I always love it when you come on. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bonnie. I think I prefer your bio than the one I gave you. That was so concise. I don't know how you do that. You have bio ninja skills. Thank you so much. Well, welcome everybody. It's so lovely to have everybody here. Did anybody go? I don't know if anybody went to the 3P UK conference. I did a talk with Susan Marmot there, and it was a lot of people are interested in relationships. It's a really important topic for people. So I'm really excited to be here. So I want to introduce myself a little bit. I try and introduce myself a little bit how I would, because I'm nosy about other people, what I would want to know. So I am not from the background of coaching or consulting. My background was in fashion. So I did high-end fashion for 20 years with some other branding consulting work in there. I started working in the Three Principles about 8 years ago, really because I went to a conference in London that Aaron was co-running, so the 3P UK conference, and found myself very, very, very quiet day 3 and felt really nice, but I had no idea why I was any different, but felt fantastic and knew I'd done nothing to get there that I was aware of. So I've been around this understanding for a very long time. And the simplest way I can say that in terms of why I didn't get impacted earlier was because I thought I was listening, but I wasn't. So my experience and exposure to the principles goes back 27 years, I think. And so, when I would hear Sid talk, or anybody really, they would say words and I would go, oh yes, I know what wisdom is. And I'd fill in the blanks. It was like doing the crossword on Sunday. It's just, I was just itching to get the crossword right. So anything that anybody said, I was like, oh yes, I know what that means. So in my head, I was already filling in with what I already knew. So as a result, of course, I didn't get a whole lot myself because I was so busy listening with my own fill in the blanks knowledge. But when I did get impacted, it was deeply. It was deeply, and I was mostly intrigued to take a look at this direction because I didn't know the feeling of gentle was available to me. Because living in my head wasn't gentle. It was like a coffee-fueled ping pong table match. It's really intense. So that's kind of a little bit how I came across the understanding and how I got more interested. But what I'm going to talk about today is about relationships, and the inspiration behind the program I run, which is Relationship Ready, goes way, way back. I think it's just nice to give you just a couple of touch points as to why I was inspired to run this as a program before I even started working in this field. I don't know if anybody knows me or might have heard this before, but right back in the years when I was in my sort of mid-20s, I noticed that how many single friends I had that were really attractive, bubbly, outgoing. They were going out to bars and pubs and all kinds of places that yet were finding dating frustrating and feeling like all the good guys were gone in their 20s and 30s. So I remember kind of being a little nonplussed about it because I could see they were attractive and interesting and ambitious and capable, and they They didn't need someone to look after them. They just wanted to have someone to share their life with. And I remember thinking, well, that's kind of weird. Maybe it's because we're all in fashion and we're, you know, when you get into a certain outside of uni or whatever, you start mixing with the same people. So we thought it was just the social group was hard to get out of, that they just weren't meeting enough people. As the years went on, it's not many years later after that, I moved to the States with Aaron, where he started interning with Pransky Associates. And I noticed that quite a lot of them stayed single for quite a while, even though at that point they were really keen to start a family. And around that time, Aaron was working, the practice at Pransky Associates specialized in relationship counseling, I guess. And they were helping couples that had been struggling and suffering to the point where you could tell that they'd either given up or just were doing best to salvage what was really looked like an unenjoyable situation. And they would turn around in 4 days. They would show up in town. So we lived in a town of 800 people. So you could generally spot out of towners. And I would see it happen a lot, even though I had no really idea of what Aaron did, is they would show up and look tense and anxious, and they would kind of like walk alongside a bit, you know, a bit like they're walking with a colleague they don't like rather than their husband or wife. And they would just look really, really uncomfortable. And I could see that they probably, from what I understood, have come as a last resort to having tried a million other things and that they had suffered. And I remember thinking, because I wasn't in this work at the time, well, if you help them after they've suffered for years, why didn't somebody help them earlier? Why go through all that pain if you can help people in 4 days? Why wait until you've kind of feel so rotten about yourself or what's possible before you get help? And it wasn't long after that time, I remember seeing my single friends and thinking, well, actually, why don't you help people before they get into a relationship? That would be, and I could start to see, I knew that there had to be something going on in the mind, because I knew that the people who I saw over and over and over again were attractive, interesting, capable people, and I just couldn't make sense of it. So it had to be something to do with how they were thinking about it that was making it hard. So roll on sort of, I don't know, maybe from when I started this work, so about 3 years ago, I decided finally to launch this program. And so people would ask me, if, you know, you're out at dinner, what do you do? And I would explain the work that I did at One Thought, and then I would also mention Relationship Ready. Now, here's what's fascinating, is 50% of the people that heard what I did with Relationship Ready would say, oh, I've got a friend who's single, who they should do that course. They really need that course. Oh God, I just got to, you know, connect you. The other 50%, and this is a really large percentage, would say, oh, I've got a friend, they're in a relationship, but they're ambiguous. They're in a relationship, but they're lonely. They're in a relationship, but they're stuck and they don't know whether to stay or go. That's a really high percentage of people who are unhappy within a relationship and don't know how to find and navigate what to do about it. You know, such to the extent that actually on Relationship Ready, we have people come on who are either looking for relationships, but also finding themselves in that situation where they have found themselves in a relationship, but they are kind of frozen about whether to go or stay. They know that they're not happy as they were in the beginning. They know that often people will feel more lonely in a relationship than out. That's really common. And that they don't feel like themselves. I don't know if you guys can relate to that. To be in a relationship but don't feel like you can just be yourself. So you're kind of like, I don't know, a little bit robotic and doing the relationship thing, and then you get around your best friends, you're like, hey, how you doing? And you let go. And you pour your heart out and you say, you know what I mean? You kind of just more yourself with your friends, and then people kind of will get a bit stiffened up around their partner. So there's clearly a need for people who are kind of in a relationship, but kind of stuck with knowing where to go. So that kind of really inspired the topic for today was that I could see that there were patterns to people's thought and relationship to their wild imaginings and the stories they tell themselves, that they either persuade themselves to stay in a relationship, or like they will talk themselves out of any natural inklings they might have about whether to stay or go. So the topic, I don't know if everybody saw it, but the topic is the antidote to settling. So I wanted to talk a little bit about people who are in relationships and struggling with, do I stay, do I go? Am I settling? Am I not? And the nature of that. And then also, which is quite common for people coming who are single, feel like they've tried everything. And if they've tried everything and nothing's worked, are all the good guys gone, or all the good girls gone, or all the lovely people that are perfect for me gone, then I should settle for something that will work even if I'm not happy, or that it will work because I can have a family that will work, then I'll have somebody. And I'll have somebody. This is really, it's really, really common thought to have around dating and to be within a relationship. So I don't know if this is resonating with people at all. So what I wanted to talk about is that why do people feel, so if you start with singles, why do singles feel like they've got to settle? So if we trace it back, people usually come on the program and they will have what I would call a thought pattern or a relationship pattern. So probably everybody on the call here could say, oh yeah, my pattern is. So it might be that your pattern is, it's really hard to get into relationships, but once you do, you get really into them, but then they only last a certain period of time. So before Aaron, pretty much every semi-serious relationship I had a shelf life of a year. And then it just seemed to magically go off like yogurt in the fridge. It was just sort of suddenly done. And like at a year, like who measured that? And they're different people. Like I was talking about the other day, like the people I dated before Aaron was so different. It's not like, oh, I pick a type. They were all done. It was like an expiration for a dairy product. Like they were literally done. And I would have varying thoughts about why I was done, but it was kind of bang on at a year. And some people will have patterns where they'll really happily have 2 or 3 dates, and then it just sort of, the energy goes. And then they get disappointed and they're like, well, I don't get it. So they keep trying and trying and trying. And then it's not uncommon to think, well, maybe there's something wrong with everybody out there or something wrong with me. So maybe I should settle. Maybe I should just, get a lot of cats, get all the DVDs for backdated. I think one lady once said to me, oh, dating is so much hard work. I've done it so many times. I'd rather stay home and watch reruns of Star Trek. And if it's uncomfortable to go out dating, you can see why. It's not a mystery. It's uncomfortable if you have a lot of thought about it. So kind of what I'm getting at is that people will have a pattern and they will think that their pattern is telling them something about the world, themselves, or dating in the modern day. That's another common. Oh, you should see what it's like out there. Oh, no. It's dating. All of these like 20 somethings. So our programs run for people 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and we've had people in our 80s. I mean, I'm telling you, there's no difference. But whatever age bracket, people come in and say, oh no, it's like this for 20s, or this is like this for you if you're in your 30s. And I see it over and over, and I'm like, they'll go, oh no, it's just this way with dating. It's just all very, very, very fast. People were dating 3 people at a time, and you're on a list with lots of other people. So if anyone here is online dating, you might know that, you might be chatting to someone that are meeting lots of other people at the same time. So you will make up that it's kind of rubbish out there, and you'd either decide you would rather not, or just go for a safe option. And when people thinking about their safe option, I think of it like sort of ugly but comfy shoes. Do you know what I mean? Does anybody own ugly but comfy shoes or trousers? Like, right? Or like ugly but comfy sweatpants. Like they look so awful, but they're so comfortable, right? Well, you know, it's like we'll settle for that because we don't know that there's really gorgeous sweatpants that happen to be comfortable but make you feel amazing. And there's also really gorgeous, well-made shoes that feel like slippers. But if your experience has been one or the other, you can see how people are getting that conclusion. So in my experience, if people have had repetitive experiences of dating, they think they have a gauge on what it is like out there. Now, what we do kind of in a way when we work with people is disrupt their thought patterns and allow them to show up without that. And then they start to find it's not true what they thought was true. God, not everybody just wants to get up and leave to go to the next day. Not everybody, you know, like, so your history is based on how you are showing up mentally. And it's not actually a sort of diagnostic of what the dating world is like. Does that make sense? Now, I wouldn't say this if I hadn't seen it countless times with people that have been on a number of dates or had many relationships or been married 3 times, whatever the number. When they change how the freedom of mind and the level of connectedness they have with themselves on the date, or just even approaching dating, that changes in moments. But the problem is that people are going off, in a way, old experience, and then thinking, well, it would be like, his analogy, it would be like if every time I went into Sainsbury's, I put a bunch of really hard rocks inside of my socks and walked around Sainsbury's, and it was really painful and hurt my feet. And I was like, ow, that would kind of hurt. I'll go in again. And then the socks appeared and I'm starting to walk down the cheese aisle. Ow, I kind of don't like it in here. And then you go in a third time. And by the third time, you're like, oh my gosh, it's like, I really don't like Sainsbury's. Maybe I'll just going to have to settle and go to some wherever. Do you know, I'm just going to order online and not be out. Right? It's not Sainsbury's. It's like there's rocks in your shoes, if that makes sense. Now that I'm trying to point to a pattern that every time people start to see the rocks are thought that making it difficult for you, then that allows you to sort of have much more enjoyable feeling around things that felt like very off-putting to do. So people base their previous experiences on dating and relationships, whether it's just getting into a date or whether it's having been married, based on their experience, and then start to make conclusions on that, not seeing that there might be a pattern in how they've thought about it. Is this making sense? The other thing I wanted to point to is kind of like, it's going back to the sort of the ugly but comfy. Every time I put on a piece of clothing that feels kind of ugly but comfy, I don't feel good. I don't feel good to put those on, but I'll make reasons why I can't get rid of them. Oh, it's wasteful. Don't get another pair. You're being unenvironmental. Like, I'll come up with good reasons, like, and I haven't even considered there might be a really nice pair of shoes out there that are also comfortable. So we get kind of worried that if we're going to let go of what we've got, we're going to be left with nothing. That means I'm going to be barefoot relationship wise. Does that make sense? I'm going to have to walk around and scratch my feet up. So what I want to point to is that the very often when people kind of come to me and talk about what I'm with someone and I don't feel myself and I'm worried that if I let go, I'm gonna not have anybody. I'm not gonna have anybody. You know, so I gotta have somebody, and then they'll talk themselves into the sweatpants. They'll say, well, they're a great color. Well, I've had them forever. You know, it's like you can see the reasoning. Now, the reason why people get torn with this settling thing is they're insecure of what it would look like if they let go and had a fresh look. So I had a moment sort of quite a few years ago where I was struggling in my marriage and was really it was a little bit like a bomb disposal guy with the wires, red, blue, stay, go. It was really horrible. I don't know if anyone's done that. Because I was unhappy for a period of time, I figured there was something wrong. And it was like drinking the tap water every time. Okay, try this. It's really, it doesn't taste good. Like, cause I didn't dislike Aaron. I just didn't have gushing warmth. And it lasted for a really long time. So I thought, oh my gosh. But it was really hard. I was frozen into, like, that was terrifying to me. The idea of having to sort of know what to do about it. It was really helpful as an experience because it taught me so much. Now, what actually ended up happening is we were walking on the heath and Aaron knew I wasn't happy. And he broke open the subject and said, I know you're not happy. And it was like getting caught in the cupboard with all the cookies around your mouth, like someone's caught you and you can't deny it because the cookies all down your face. But like less fun. So I was just like, for a moment, I was really awkward. I was like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to cover this back up. I didn't want to look at it for a minute. And he said, look, I really love you and I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me. And it was so touching to have him say that everything in me just relaxed. It was such a relief to not be red, blue. I felt so bad about the fact that I didn't feel happier, that I couldn't even talk to anyone about it because I felt like I would betray him. I just didn't know where to go. And I was so grateful that he raised it. So we're walking, and it was literally like having my head empty out from all this disturbed thought that I've been carrying around for these months. And as all the tension and worry of this thing that hadn't been said and it had, and as it kind of relaxed out of my body, and I'm walking and I'm starting to get fresh feeling and fresh thoughts, I had the weirdest thought occur to me out of the blue, and it was, would you pick him again? And I literally went, what? You what now? Because we were literally talking about divorce, or what would it look like? I mean, we were, it was a very quiet, calm conversation, but that comes into my head and I'm like, whoa. And I didn't know for a second. I'm like, I don't know. And then I imagined him on a shelf with like Brad Pitt and Aaron, and there was a few other guys. I'm not going to go into details, but they were there, and I was there with all my saved up money, and I could pick anybody. And I didn't know for a second, and I was like, and then the answer came from right up inside of me and said, yes, and you'd pick him first. I'd pick him first. And my mouth dropped open while we were walking. And I go, Aaron, guess what I just realized? And I try and tell him, but he's too busy talking about divorce to hear me, honestly. I don't think he heard me. And I'm trying to go, I just realized I'd pick you again. Like, because I'd stopped living in the world where I had choice. I'd stopped living like I had all the choice in the world. So it became uncomfortable and suffocating. And in that moment, I realized, yeah, I'd pick him again. But right before that, I had got comfortable that, that in a way that it didn't matter whether we were together. Whereas before it really mattered because I didn't want to break anything. It was like a Tiffany vase that I was balancing and it was going to break if I made the wrong decision. And one of the things that really, really taught me is you can't really try and choose between two crappy options. You have to be willing to let go in order to fill up and know the answer. And I know the answer could have been no. It could have been no, really easily could have been no, I think. And I would have trusted myself if it had been, we really care about you, but it feels like this isn't right for us anymore. That could have been the answer. And it was a really amazing, shocking teaching moment for me. And I'm just so grateful. And the way I talk about marriage now is I say, well, I talk about Aaron being my boyfriend, and sometimes he's my business partner, and sometimes he's just annoying and in the way. But I literally feel like I pick him every day. I don't feel like I'm in a committed relationship. I mean, God, that feels so like a heavy, wet blanket that I'm committed forever and ever. And it just sounds so like dooming voice to me. I just feel like I'm so lucky I get to keep picking him. Luckily, he keeps picking back. He may not one day. I literally tell the kids, like one of the kids once said, tell us you're not going to get divorced, because all their friends' parents were getting divorced, and we're like, we don't know. And they're like, thanks, you're not supposed to say that, Mum. You're supposed to say, we promise you're going to be together. I said, I don't know, but we're really enjoying ourselves. And my daughter sometimes says, she come into the kitchen, she says, loves hearing us giggle and laugh together, because we really, there's no weight on it. There's no worry that there's not going to be someone out there if we decide to change route. I could be with someone else. I know we could both find someone else if we wanted to. It just really feels right for now. That sounds very, but do you get what I'm seeing? Is like, I had to get freedom of mind and not have any attachment to what it would look like before I can have a fresh insight around whether it felt right to stay or go. I kind of feel like it might be nice time to ask some questions. What do you think? Does anybody have any? Or can anybody relate to what I'm saying or had a similar experience? Someone's got their hand up. Is that you? Hi.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So my question is maybe a bit of a technical one. I'm curious, how do you have them think about these things? Some reflection questions that you give people to get to this place. I know a lot of it is you being there, very relaxed, and clearly seeing that as an option and seeing the principles that are in action in these situations. But I'm also very curious about what do you have them reflect on to get to that place themselves through their experience. If I don't know if the question makes sense.
What do you mean? How do I get single people or together people, like, or both? How do I get them to get more open in themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean, or do you mean how do I help them show up to dating? I was a little unclear.
So I'm curious for both cases. I've never worked with couples, so I don't even have an idea of how that looks like. So I'm curious for both.
Okay, so you're working with singles right now.
So I'm not really working on the relationships. I'm really curious about that. I'm in the last 2 years in principles, so I haven't really specialized, to be honest.
Okay.
So I'm really curious.
So the first thing, so when we work with people, some singles, some people, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So when we run programs, so like we have a program coming up in November, the 2-day retreat is outside, and we have other things, topics that we cover. We cover, kind of how the mind works and how it teaches us, our clarity of moment, and how we're doing in the moment when we can have very tricking thoughts that will tell us we're clear when we're not. But we really, really, really focus on, for those 2 days, how are you showing up? And that means, in what state of mind are you showing up on dates? And I would include scrolling on your phone, looking at dates. That's the same. People say, oh yeah, no, I'm open-minded. No. Do you know what I mean? It's like, they're like, no, I'm good. I'm like, well, because it's like, well, we're not ordering on Tesco's. Why don't we slow down a bit? Because people will show up in a way that's invisible to them. So we spend 2 days talking about that. And it's fabulous because people will show up to on the first date or even online in a way that is way more tense and guarded than they appreciate. Always. Mm-hmm. They might say, oh, I go on loads of dates and da, 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 da. I'm like, well, kind of, would you go on holiday in that feeling? And they'll be like, course not. I'm just, I mean, how am I going to get things done? How am I going to find a partner if I'm not a little bit engaged with it? And I'm like, yeah, okay, but you can see, I don't think you're like that with your best friends. So if I stand up from here and I walk into my hallway and start walking into my kitchen, I might start thinking, oh God, I've got to cook dinner. Have I cooked anything? Oh God, the kids have left crumbs everywhere. And I'm picking up thought and I'm getting a little tense and a little heady. And then someone might say something, you know what I mean? And I'll have good reasons for it, but I'm not showing up the way I would be if I'm really relaxed, hanging out with friends, having a glass of wine and not really thinking about a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Or I might get out and literally go and put the garbage can on the street. I'm going to show up to a certain way to that. I'm going to show up if I, this, have you ever noticed, like, the second you get out of the shower, you're already down outside the door. You're already out the door thinking about what, because you're already always in a thought story that can look so reasonable, but that affects the feeling you have. It affects how open you are. So I talk about when people are dating online, they're often way more tense than they appreciate. And they also don't appreciate that when people are putting up profiles, I've never met anyone that said, oh yeah, I put up a profile and it feels totally like me and I was really fun to do. No one says that. So everybody's a little bit, oh God, I hope I got it right. Does that look good? Would they hire me as a relationship? It's like no one is super comfortable doing that. Even people who are serial daters are kind of like a little bit of a stiff version of themselves. So you're getting a little bit of a stiff version of someone even on their profile. So you can't go off that. You have to go to your intuition. So I talk about it a little bit like taking a metal detector on the beach. And so if you were just to look on the surface, you'll see, I don't know, rusty can, an old rock, a boot, some more rocks, some water, and you might even see something that looks really lovely and it turns out it's a bit of scrap metal too, because you're just looking on the surface because you're sped up. You're trying to find something that fits, something that just, anything that will kind of like, well, I want someone tall. I want someone who doesn't look, mean. I want someone who also looks really handsome, and so you've got a lot on your mind. So there's no room for intuition, none. So when you use a metal detector and you're kind of putting it over the beach, what I love about it is so maybe the tin can was a terrible analogy, but like imagine rocks and I don't know, seaweed or whatever, and it will graze over. But a metal detector is like intuition. It will just hit a spot and go beep, 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 beep. You can't see anything, but you can feel something. It's like, oh, and then you kind of have a little dig and you find just something that's a gem that you would have missed because you were okay, they've got to not be like the last guy. I hope it's not, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. No, then, and so when people relax and take off all the pressure, they will tell me time and time again, it was just something about them. It's just something about them. You know what they'll also say? 99.9% of the time, yeah, their profile picture was a bit rubbish. This is including people who are now getting married from our program. Mm-hmm. Right? So they'll go, yeah, it kind of looks like, like sort of like, I don't know. It's like, but there's something that resonated with them. And if you're too sped up, it's really easy to miss that. So if you're in a much quieter kind of more, less got to get it done, then you kind of like can take your metal detector over and just look, and then, oh, I don't know, there's something. No, it's not, and you start to trust that. That makes sense. So that's an example of people showing up just to the online dating differently. Because people are showing up with their tick boxes. Why does someone have a tick box? Their tick box is the opposite of everything that went wrong in the past. Oh God, I dated a guy in finance and he was such a definitely not dating anyone in finance ever again. Oh God, I dated a woman last time and I don't know, she was a redhead or whatever, like people will make up the most random things because they had an experience where they got hurt or they felt shame. People feel shame. If it doesn't go well, they get shame as opposed to, oh, well, that just wasn't right for me. They'll think I did something wrong. It's like we're all at heart kind of 6-year-olds that think we're like, oh my God, I did something wrong. You know what I mean? And it's like we take it really personally. So we try and narrow down our options to get like the sweet spot. If we get someone who's exactly like this, so nobody from finance, no redheads, nobody who doesn't live within a 2-mile radius from me, and they have to have traveled to at least 7 countries. And it starts to end up like this. And this is the opposite of intuitive dating. It's the opposite. But the only reason why somebody has a tick box is that they are trying to get something that they think is going to make them happy. But if you don't show up with a kind of more intuitive metal detector, you won't feel or resonate with something that's going to be a click for you. So one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about in terms of settling is that people are insecure. They're insecure. They're insecure it's going to go wrong again, that they're going to go and have another time where it failed. And you know what's so fabulous is that after seeing people kind of get this, I suppose, in their bones and their blood, and they just really get confident in themselves, they just feel so in love and loving the connection from within themselves, but really enjoying sharing that with another person. They know that their happiness isn't coming from that other person. They love that they get to share their life with someone, but it's not conditional on that person being there, because they know they could date someone else if they wanted to. And that level of calm, confidence, and sweetness creates a really nice connection between people. Does that answer your question or not quite?
It does. Thank you. I'm also curious for the couples part, but I'm seeing that there are other people holding up hands, so
Well,
I'm
let's do
gonna.
questions. If there's a gap later, raise your hand again, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
Who else had a question?
See you.
If nobody speaks,
See ya. Yes.
go ahead. Somebody, I like, I like what you were saying. Having experienced Aaron, I can just imagine what that was like when you were in that confrontation of yes or no. What I see is that it's those moments when I feel I can be myself, meaning at the moment when I'm saying no to someone and they don't react like, okay, that's it or whatever, but they're still willing to hold the space. They're not decided yet. I'm the one that is fearful, pushing them away for whatever reason. But the moment that I can express that and they still feel love or acceptance or whatever, it's like, oh, I can just be me now. I don't have to hide those uncomfortable feelings or my judgments. So it's like the freedom to have my judgments and the good feelings and let that determine. And so I think that's what I heard you saying, that at that moment, that's when you really get to choose. And it's almost like it's chosen for you. And that's the feeling I had. It's like, wow, I don't have to weigh this and I don't have to decide. It's decided for me. I feel so good about being with the person because I can be all of me, including my judgments.
It's lovely. No, it's so true. And I think I've never thought of this before, but if I was to go back, I probably would have mentioned it months earlier and said, hey, I'm not happy. But that wouldn't have been a big deal. It wouldn't have been a thing. That's not a thing anymore in our house if someone isn't happy for a bit. It's like nothing to worry about. So we can kind of just say where we're at without there being a lot of weight on it. So we can just feel where we're at and say where we're at, but no one is going off and, you know, writing a thesis about what the other person said. It's like, oh, we're allowed to feel anything. And it's so nice.
And the other part of that is not only the feeling of the rest of me is acceptable to the other person, but I'm accepting it. I'm accepting this state of mind that I'm in. And then the other part is when I know this is where I want to be because I'm in a place with me, you know, and I think that's it's a done deal inside me. now you have to, the other person has to decide. I can't control that, but I know where I'm at. I know what I want, and I can hang out with this while whatever you need, space or more certainty, that's fine. But it's that power that it's just such an accepting of where I'm at right now, and that's so powerful. Okay, that's just, and thank you for sharing all the things you did. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I love what you shared. Thank you.
Sia,
Anybody else?
yeah, I just want to check with Sia. Did you want to say something or ask a question?
Oh, yep. Hi there.
Hi.
This is Sia. Yeah, I live in Tunbridge Wells,
Oh, I
just
like
south of
Tunbridge Wells.
London.
Yeah.
Yes, beautiful. It's beautiful. Yes. Yeah. Well, now just related to what you shared as your own experience with Aaron, and yeah, I just brought up something for me. I thought that I share with you because it's been something like a question mark in my own relationship. I've been in I was in a loving relationship for 9 years, and the last 2 years we decided to get married, and we're engaged, and to, I could say, like the most beautiful soul that I ever met in my life, and loving and caring and happy and everything. Well, the relationship went on beautifully, a lot of fun, a lot of experiences, and until we got to the lockdown. We don't live together, and then we didn't see each other for a couple of months maybe, and during that period, I noticed that things were changing. I can say it was changing for myself as well. Everything going on, all the worries that everybody had in that period. But afterwards, it was just different. The dynamics had changed, and it wasn't the same person, basically, that I remembered. But still, I thought, well, I'm going to just let this just run out and see what comes up, in the moment, because it's not my job to interfere or anything. And about a month, about 6 weeks ago or so, she came to me for the first time in nine and a half years, and said, "Oh, see, I like to talk to you, like on a serious matter." I said, "Well, great, yes, let's do that." And then she just said, "Well, yeah, I haven't been that happy in the past, and there are some differences between us, but I hate confrontation. I've never said anything, and I know you don't know about them, but I just want to say that I don't think this is going to work out, and I want to break up." And that was the first proper, serious conversation we had in 9.5 years, and that was it. And the relationship is now broken up, and yeah, it hit me very hard, actually, because I was hoping that we would be together for the rest of our lives. We had talked about it and everything. Had even chosen the venue for a wedding, things like that. And just were waiting for things to work out for her sick mom and her duties with her and stuff. Logistics, basically. And but I was extremely disappointed. And just trying to work out and analyze, okay, what happened, because myself, being a coach, I thought I'd like to know what happened. And the more I asked questions, I said, well, let's meet up and talk. We'd met a few times. Every time it was like, oh, well, like, you like dogs, I like cats, so it's not going to work, I don't know, things like that. And I just think, but these really, we can work on these. These are not a problem, And then I found out that she had met one of her neighbors, a guy, during that period when the spent every evening together when it was locked down, sitting outside and I don't know, having drinks and having a fag. Then I said, well, but apart from this, what's going on there? And she said, well, yeah, this is my first male friend I've had in my life. And I find it very interesting. And I'm attracted to him and he's attracted to me. And I've fallen out of love with you. So that's it. And I didn't get any more explanations, anything else, you know, and I was just, what? And it hit me very hard. Now, when you were speaking about your own experience, I thought, well, might be a good thing to possibly for myself to have a fresh look from a different angle, from your angle. And well, I know Aaron, I love Aaron anyways, you know, and you're also loving as well. I thought, well, maybe you could shed some light from different angle on this. I was thinking like, maybe I should go back to things like Stephen Covey advises, you know, you got to have a family meeting once a month and do this, go through this, just reset the button, you know. I'm just trying to think, okay, what do I take away with me from this relationship? So that hopefully I will be more present to the next one. Apparently, obviously, I have missed stuff as well. You know, by the way, I'm not blaming her at all for this. Not at all. Not at all. I know she's made the best decision for her, considering in the state of mind that she is. And it's not my place to judge. But I'm just thinking, there must be some lesson in this for me in love, you know, from life. Something that I can take away. And hopefully next time I might be able to you know, have a better relationship, be a better partner. I don't know, whatever it is. I just, I thought if I could have some, you know, of your views on this, that's all.
I'm so sorry about that. It's heartbreaking when it's news to you, you know?
Yeah.
I think my main thought is that I wouldn't go into a bunch of analytical thinking about what we could have done.
I'm over that.
Yeah, I mean, going into the future, but going into, you know, future relationships, I've noticed what people don't generally trust is that when people get insecure, they don't trust that they'll know what to do in the moment with a clear mind. And I could lay a bunch of stuff out for you, such as, you know, not living, you know, when you have an experience like that, it's quite easy to sort of have a bit of PTSD about it. Like, so if you got with someone and it was magical, because I think no doubt you will, you're very warm. If they seem to pull away, not then getting insecure and then kind of going after it and trying to make it work, right? So a real romance killer is insecurity. So what you should be focusing on is, in a way, really letting that experience dissolve and compost in a way, because the only thing that you have now is what's in front of you, which is the moment, is to enjoy yourself from here on in. And know that you can kind of just take things one step at a time. But if you find you're creeping in, oh God, they seem to be distancing off, I think there's less contact. So more commonly for women, you know, guys will, a lot of very flurrying texts, and it's very, very romantic. And then they get together for a date and then the texts sort of dry out. And they get a bit like, well, because for women, not always, but for women often, not every woman, that's part of the flirting, right? And then it dies off and they get worried and insecure and confused. And I'm like, well, what happens if you just got quiet and just didn't try and control the situation? You let it organically unfold. Almost all of the time, they hear from them the next day. It's a really lovely time. It's like taking away the need to control it so that thing doesn't happen again, is going to be my main advice to you. You want to not try and not have that happen again. That's going to be unhelpful to you. But showing up and being very present and not worrying whether things work out, and just concentrate on enjoying yourself, magic. It sounds like really dumb advice, but it's powerful advice. How many times have you been put, all of you can ask yourselves this. So I'm assuming you've all dated more than one person up to now, and I'm assuming you've probably all gone off a person that seemed lovely one minute and then they were less fun, less intriguing. Usually it's because that person started to get insecure about you and then got a bit intense and needy, and that's very off-putting. So there was a story I've shared before, and I don't want to run out of question time, where when Aaron and I first started dating, he realized he liked me and started to get weird and intense. Whereas before we just didn't even think we were a couple. So it was just lovely. And then as soon as he decided he liked me, then I was like, oh God, why are you calling all the time? And then he started to learn the principles and realized, oh, that's insecurity. He literally dropped it. He came back from America and I was going to dump him because I was a bit weirded out. It's like, you'll hear people say, oh, they're not what I thought they were. They seem lovely at first, and then they turn into a weirdo. All that happened is he got insecure. I could have missed out on the best guy of my life if that amazing instance hadn't happened. So he comes back from America, and I literally said, can we talk? I was 50-50. And he shows up and he's got no insecurity. He's so comfortable and he's just enjoying himself and being together, and there's nothing on it, and he's very present. And literally the question just dissolved. It's like I couldn't remember what the question was. Do I stay? Do I? It was because he'd gone a bit strange. So insecurity is a romance killer. Full stop, the end. Insecurity is not sexy. Full stop, the end. So your only job is to be present and not carry your past with you, and enjoy yourself and relax. That's it.
So you don't believe in experiences helping us recalibrate, readjust, learn from?
I can tell you're keen to not miss an opportunity. I think if a reflection about this situation that's helpful, it will occur to you naturally. You don't need to delve into it. You're going to have to just trust your mind in the moment. If you're present and you're enjoying yourself and you're at ease and you don't have the intensity about it. I actually believe that if we are connected to ourselves more deeply and someone does drift away, then I do think, that might be not a bad thing. What if that was kind of, in a way, nature, and that, you're going to meet someone else that's going to be for the next part of your life? I don't know. But I think it would be very easy to delve into it / analyze in an attempt to get something from it. I think you'll get something that will just naturally occur to you when you're not thinking.
Yeah, I can hear my own ego every time I go there, and I recognize its voice, and then I can step out of it once I'm aware of it. Otherwise, yes, it's not. I know this kind of thinking. I feel that it's not really being present to what is. It is digging back into the grave of the past and trying to find answers where there's no answers. There's only problems.
It's really, I'm constantly with this understanding, realizing, oh no, sorry. Constantly realizing I forget to trust mind. I feel like such a doofus because I'll go thinking about something, and then it's not like we don't use, sometimes we want to reflect on things and go through them or look at the schedule, but in matters where it really matters, I forget to go to nothing. I'm like, oh, you idiot, why didn't you just let everything go and see what occurs to you? Like, it's like we forget.
We're only humans. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, good luck. I'd love to hear how you get on.
I will be in touch. Thank you very much. Yeah, sure.
Really lovely to meet you.
Likewise.
Does anybody have more questions? The time kind of whizzed like crazy. I'm happy to stay on for an extra few minutes if people have questions they want to still ask. If that's all right with you, Bonnie, or they might want to go and eat their dinner. I don't know.
Jan?
Hi, Leela. It's been really good to be part of this. And I can be very brief. I suppose I just wanted to say that I listened to your presentation at the conference, and I've also participated in another kind of one-off discussion session, and it's been great. And I came to this session with something quite specific on my mind, which is that I'm a mental health mentor to students. And they're all returning in their massive numbers at the moment to cities all over the world, probably let alone just in Scotland. And dating is coming up a lot. And what you've been saying has just been so useful. And I guess, I mean, it's not my role to massively, it's not the focus of the work I do with them, but I bring a three principles understanding to whatever work I'm doing with them. And I guess it also triggered some of my own experience, which, and I guess, you know, I'm in a happy relationship at this point, but I've had some difficult experiences of dating. And it's interesting because I would say that part of my issue was sort of a feminism that I felt, hey, I should be able to just, you know, say, oh, should we see each other again? And kind of like be quite assertive might be the right word. And I could see that that was off-putting for some people. But I can also see that that wasn't using my metal detector. I saw it as something positive, and yet I could see it didn't always work. And I could feel some shame when it didn't work. So I just felt I don't have a totally clear mind about this. And it's been so, I mean, I'm happy to say that something, you know, I went off my script in meeting the person I'm happily with now. But it's been so helpful listening to you. And I just love the idea of the metal detector of feelings. So you've given me an awful lot that I can take back into to the work that I'm doing, but it's really, really fantastic. So thank you.
Lovely to see you, Jan. Yeah, we work with quite a lot of 20-somethings in some of the companies we work with, the tech companies. And I don't know if I was a really heady 20-year-old, like I was super heady, but I feel like most of my friends weren't as anxious as I was, but I see like, they're quite serious. A lot of the, you know, sort of people in their 20s can be quite serious because they feel like every decision they make has got so many implications and they got to get it right.
Absolutely.
And, you know, like, you just want them to be able to hold it more lightly. It's literally like, yeah. Yeah. And for any age, actually, obviously, but like, you know, yeah, no, lovely. That's really lovely. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. It was amazing.
Yeah, wonderful. Did anybody else have any thoughts before do you know, Bonnie, how many people raised their hand? Do we have many people? Or?
Yeah, there's one more.
Okay.
Can you take it?
Yeah.
Hey, me again.
Hi.
So since I didn't get an answer on the second part, I'm really curious about also working with couples. I was really intrigued when you said like working with George and Linda, like after 4 days, some of the couples that were really like struggling together ended up really relaxed even after 4 days, which is really quickly and like amazing results. So I'm really curious what happens with them, like how do you guys work with them? What do you see that is happening that you guys manage to resolve in those retreats?
Well, so Aaron was working with couples, and obviously George and Linda and their practice, that's what they were known for. I couldn't, because I wasn't involved in that work, I didn't sit in any workshops other than just seeing the couples come and go or meet them in the office and see the difference from an outside perspective. But my experience of working with couples, it's interesting. I think a lot of people will show up to get married with quite a lot of agenda and an idea of it being something. And it's not unusual to work with couples that have never really known each other. Like they've never really listened to each other. Like, I don't know how you guys feel, but I know for many years, when I first met Aaron, the first thought I thought was, oh, cute. And then it was like, together, and then it was like, it's not really a thing, and it was like, oh, okay, now he's my boyfriend. It's like, oh my god, he's my husband, we had a fight. But a lot of my thinking, I was tagging him every time he would talk. I would think of him in relation to me. How do I feel about that, given that we're a couple? I never really considered that he was totally a person, nothing to do with me. And I think I see a lot with couples is that when they are together, it's very loaded thinking. So a lot of couples will do sort of tit for tat thought. Well, I did this for you, so really you can't owe me. And it just weighs down with a sort of a lot of ill will. And like the couples that I say don't really know each other, they love the idea of what they thought they were getting, but they've never really come at it with nothing on their mind, because they wanted something from the relationship. They wanted to feel a certain way. So obviously a lot of people will have an expectation about feeling amazing, and then if they don't feel amazing, then the other person's doing something wrong. As opposed to, well, how are they showing up? How are they showing up? Are they showing up with nothing on their mind? And one of the things that I didn't expect to happen when I really started to learn about this in my own mind, but particularly after that moment in the heath, I stopped everything looking so serious and like there was going to be something on it. And so I stopped worrying about if it didn't feel great. It just didn't feel great. And so what happened was nothing felt weighty anymore. So I noticed that I started to get a lot of innocence around Aaron. So if he did something that was irritating, I'll be like, I just saw it as an isolated incident rather than, oh, he does that all the time. You know the difference? Oh, here we go again. Oh, they're about to talk about that, aren't they? Oh, they're going to, right? Instead of just like, oh, he did that. And I just couldn't believe I started to have this puppy feeling around him, where we were both able to be lovely or sweet or annoying or moody or a total bitch or whatever. Like, you know, we were able to be that way, but it wasn't a problem because we didn't live in worry about our relationship. And we didn't live in this idea that it had to be anything. We could just be whatever we were in the moment. And I think a lot of couples get really a lot of thinking around their partner rather than literally just having no thinking about them, being really fresh with them. How are they? So my takeaway, really what I'm pointing to, is how are they showing up? Are they showing up with nothing on their mind? I doubt it. Because when you show up with nothing on your mind, you feel fantastic. I remember sitting at my laptop once, because we do a lot of listening with our clients, and I know that if I'm in a habitual thought, I'll get the feeling of that habitual thought. Oh, I've got to make dinner, or oh, I'm going to the tube, and I'm going to da-da-da. And I was like, I'm sitting at my laptop and I'm thinking my laptop's the same. So I let go of my laptop email thinking, and I let go of all this thought. And I'm sitting at my laptop and my mind goes into such a beautiful, fresh space. I'm literally tearing up writing this email. There's a person at the end of it. That's so sweet. There's a person there. And it's not like I'm a soppy person, but not being in a bunch of habitual thought feels incredible. So that would be the first question I would ask any couple is, how are you showing up? Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. I've seen the same change for myself. I'm married for like a year. And yeah, I've seen the my change as I deepen my understanding of principles, seeing how a lot of what was my projection, and even like it still happens before she was eating, and my mind made it so I heard chewing, and that was like a moment of annoyance, but it was really funny because I knew what was going on, and it was like I was laughing to myself, like, oh, you're hearing this now, and it became funny.
That's so cute. You just saved yourself, seriously, just 20 years of suffering by seeing that was your thought. Good job. That's brilliant. That's the time to get it right early on. That's awesome. That's gorgeous. And you can show up like you just met.
Yeah.
Or if you're in a
Thank you.
grumpy mood, it doesn't matter. So that too. That's lovely. Thank you. Well, I don't know if we have any more questions. I just wanted to let you know, if anybody listening to this is very intrigued, we're running our next Relationship Ready program November 14th and 15th. It's virtual. It's based around UK and US hours. So it's a 2-day retreat from 3 till 7:30 UK time. And that's a ladies retreat, but we're going to be running another man's one soon as well. So if anyone is interested, please do let me know and I can kind of give you details. But I don't know if there's not any burning questions. What do you think, Bonnie?
I don't see anyone else's hand raised. Anyone?
I don't know if anyone's got any comments or things that they've found interesting or they've taken away from the session. You don't have to.
May I ask a question, please, there?
Yeah.
Sure. Do you run programs for practitioners as well, for coaches with regards to relationships, or is it just for your clients as a training?
So we train practitioners. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
But do we train practitioners to work with couples?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ah, yes. Question. No, because I don't. It's funny because the only thing I learned was to listen and to sort of and to get and all of the things I learned about relationships just bubbled up when I wasn't thinking, and my observations and things that didn't make sense, and I get curious about it. So I never was trained to learn with couples. I just learned that I walk around with a mind. I know what that's like. But we don't train. I think understanding yourself as deeply and meaningfully is what you bring to the table. And maybe I'll change my mind in a year, but that, given that I work with couples and singles, I don't feel it's not something I've ever been really drawn to put together. Because I think when you're very connected and this work is very meaningful to you and you're willing to stay a student of it, that's really important, rather than when I first graduated, I sat and my first conference was super boring. I was like, oh yeah, I've heard them speak before. Yeah, they're doing okay. I've heard this joke before. And I'm like, Leela, it got really boring. I used to like the principles like a week ago. I'm like, what's different? And I was sitting there, I was going, oh, you think you know because you graduated. It was really helpful. It was like going from dating to a boring marriage in like the space of a week. I'm like, oh, can I go back to the dating bit? So I date the principles in terms of understanding. I'm always doing my best to be on a first date. That makes sense?
Totally. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, any questions? Bonnie, you have emails that you can forward questions to me, right? If anybody has any.
Absolutely. I'm going to also post your webinar, or not your webinars, your website underneath, so they can reach you through that as well. And yeah, I have to tell you, there were so many pearls of wisdom, but that going back to dating, the 3 principles, love that.
Oh.
Anyway, thank you so much. Really, really enjoyed this. And thanks everybody for being here. And the next webinar is on October 21st with Samantha Hurst. So hopefully we'll see you all live then.
Thank you so much, guys. You guys were such a fabulous people to hang out with for an hour. So thank you. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.